Most Indians don't read for pleasure. So why is India having 100 plus literature festivals? Asks The Guardian. They know the answer to this question, by the way. The answer is, as it always is, to commodify reading. When there are 100 literature festivals, there will be a lot of offline conversation that will filter online about books, about authors, about the panels, and there will be interest. That interest might translate to sales, and those sales might turn into these first time readers turning into seasonal readers. India is a fairly young country, so the fact that it has so many literature festivals, when economically it makes more sense to invest money in other nation building things. And yet, here we have an industry that is investing in books. And somehow, in 2026, The Guardian has a problem with Indians having fun at the many literature festivals. A nation with over a billion people, by the way. If there's just a few literature festivals happening, the venue is not going to be able to handle the footfall that comes in. We already saw the chaotic videos that came out of World Book Fair Delhi this year. This is why India does a lot of literature festivals all over the place. This article is not written in good faith. Were it written in good faith, it would have asked questions, curious questions, questions without assumptions and judgments. I'm not going to do the Ted Lasso monologue, but I really want to. Because what even is this article? The premise has so much potential. Because why is India not reading for pleasure? That is a valid question. A lot of Indian readers read non-fiction, and not just non-fiction around memoirs and autobiographies, which are about someone's life. No, they are reading self-help and self-improvement. How do I improve this very specific aspect of my job or personality? How do I focus on acquiring this skill? Very output oriented books. They do sell well in the Indian market, meaning these books are not being read for pleasure. Mostly they may bring pleasure to the readers, but they're mostly being read with the purpose of gaining knowledge, gaining information, gaining insight from the books. The premise is definitely valid, but like that statement after it, that is what pushes this article into judgment territories. And I don't know why the journalist spoke to very specific sorts of people when they could have reached out and talked to so many others. The CEO of HarperCollins India has already responded to this article in a lengthy LinkedIn post. For the premise is simple. It's to make India read more. It's to make people consider the possibilities of reading for pleasure, of reading without a purpose, of reading for reading's sake. And you will not be able to lecture people into reading more, into reading for pleasure, by writing condescending articles like this. You will maybe inspire people to read more by making reading seem cool, seem like a community activity, seem like something non-solitary, non-boring. And literature festivals are a great place for something like that to happen, because you have different authors who are coming and being their quirky little selves, talking about their books, talking about writing, talking about reading, talking about the real truths and the fictions around their books. You'll see reading communities get together and interpret the fiction and the non-fiction that they read in their own way. You'll see tiny little children making fan arts about their favorite children's books. You will see community in action at a literature festival. The article, it begins with a celebrity coming to the cruel realization of your celebrity might not convert into book sales because you might be famous for, let's say, acting. When you write a memoir, you are not talking about acting. You're talking about your life. And the people who have come to love you and follow you for your acting may not want to buy a product where you talk about yourself and you talk about your life. They may buy your book if it's gossip about the industry. So if you have written, say, a critique on the film industry, they may pick up your book. But if it's a memoir, they may not pick it up. It is simple product market fit. That is an interesting place to open an article like this. Then it attempts to dissect the Indian middle class and how most middle class homes are devoid of books, which is fair. Most homes will not have stacks and stacks and stacks of books placed because space is scarce and you have to prioritize space in your house for very, very specific things. There's also this very judgmental line around Reader's Digest and how people preserve Reader's Digests in their homes as if it is a treasure. And I don't know about you. Reader's Digest was a treasure growing up for me because I come from a tier 3 city. My grandfather used to get Reader's Digests in Ahmedabad. He used to store all of them for me. And when I used to go to Ahmedabad during my summer vacations, I used to be given these little Reader Digest stacks. And I used to read them, the jokes, the stories, the summaries of books, the interviews with people that I don't see on TV. It was a treasure. It was like getting access to an algorithmic feed of interesting things. It's not that people are storing these Reader's Digests because it is exclusive or anything like that. They are doing it because that was important for them. The Reader's Digest represents something that brought them joy. I don't know why you would judge someone based on the fact that they have Reader's Digests in their quote bookshelves. Can we stop judging people based on what they have and don't have in their bookshelves? The other thing that irked me was this specific line. I will read this line for you because I don't understand where this sort of judgment comes from. Do more than 100 literature festivals bloom every year, even in the smallest, unlikeliest of towns? This is 2026. People have been doing their jobs remotely in their multinational companies with ease. The unlikeliest little town is irrelevant. From the perspective of capturing a market, the bigger towns are already captured. The market that is to be explored in terms of book publishing, finding new readers, that market is tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. If there's a literature festival happening in a small city, people would at least pause and ask themselves one simple question. What is my favorite book? I have always seen reading to be a skill. Like every other skill, you need to develop that reading habit. Developing habits does not come from wanting to do something alone. Festivals in India are only partly about the books. They are a spectacle offering music, dance, handicraft sales, and food. It is hard not to judge the stance of this journalist based on these words because what do you mean? A book festival, which is about books, book writing, which is a part of the arts, also contains other versions of the arts like music, like dance, brilliantly colorful. There's different sorts of music. There's mehndi and all of these other things happening all over the place. It's not just about books, it's about art. And it is about art appreciation. Why are we complaining about art appreciation? I also find myself judging the people interviewed for this article from the Indian book publishing ecosystem because why are they generalizing the entire market of India, which is very difficult to generalize? A statement from one such individual says buying books is still a luxury for the middle and lower middle class. Yes, but borrowing books is not. The middle class borrows a lot of books. I have seen it. I remember doing it. And to reiterate, I have grown up in a tier 3 city. I now live in a tier 2 city. And I occasionally move around in tier 1 cities. So, anecdotal evidence of one person will tell you that yes, buying and owning books is definitely a privilege, but reading books is not. People lend books to each other. There are these discount bookstores, used bookstores, and bookstores and like bookstalls that sell pirated cheaper copies of their books, which should not happen but does happen because the price point of these pirated books is much, much lower, people are definitely reading. Okay. And the fact that the CEO of a book publishing company who also owns a bookstore is making such a statement makes me go, really? Did you get out? Do you get out of Delhi? Because I really want you to get out of Delhi and see that India is not just Delhi. The intent of these book festivals is to make reading seem accessible and to make reading seem cool as a new hobby that someone could pick up. So I am a reader and I have dragged two of my friends with me to one of these literature festivals who don't read books. But they have listened to me yap about books for the longest time and they're like, ugh, fine, let's go support her. She seems so excited. They come to this literature festival, which is full of color, which is full of life, which is full of all of these versions of the arts. Stand up comics doing comedy specials, mimes doing mimes, painters painting, musicians playing wonderful little instruments. They are put in this environment that could be described as that town square in Disney's Tangled, right? It is impossible to walk away from an environment of this sort with anything other than good vibes. Somebody who thinks of reading as this boring activity is going to maybe wonder, can I also read books? And my two friends who have come along and are having fun at this place about books for their first time, they are maybe going to ask me for a book recommendation. That's where it begins. That's where it begins. The arts are used as bait to get non readers to come to the reading festival. How hard is that to understand? Apparently, very hard because the article continues, mocking the fact that the literature festival, literature being a member of the arts, also contains other versions of the arts. I shouldn't speak on behalf of writers and authors, but I will. Book publishing is extremely collaborative with other members of the arts. You know how we say don't judge a book by its cover? Well, readers do judge books by their covers, which is why the cover illustrators, artists who paint and or illustrate the cover that goes in front of the book, that is one of the more important aspects of selling the books. This person is a painter. So to say that why is a painter painting in a literature festival? I mean this sincerely. I don't understand why this journalist asked this question. The answer is because book publishing is a collaborative industry. We do not judge mediums of art. To us, art is about expression. A painter painting a scene with tiny little details put in it is a version of expression. I cannot stress this enough. This journalist has found the most uncleest and the most auntiest of people to comment on this particular topic. And uncle and auntie here is not about age. It is an essence, it is a vibe. You know, people who always complain about things and who always have to say something unnecessarily sassy. So we have such commentary coming in around masala mix, something for everyone. And yeah, why not? Masala mix is fun. Masale mein swad hai. To swad aane do. We like masala. So of course our literature festivals are going to have masala in it. Something for everyone. A blend of different spices with a strong smell that could be sniffed from kilometers away. Nothing wrong with that. That's how we roll. To look at literature festivals from one singular mold seems very judgmental, seems very short sighted, and seems very inappropriate. The premise is good. Why is India not reading for pleasure? This is an important question which needs to be answered, a question that we need to contemplate, and a question that we need to guide our culture around. The article goes on to mention the rising literacy rates in India, and this is why I said the premise is good. This is where the article comes to asking the question of the gap between reading as a habit, having the ability to read, and reading for pleasure. Right? This is a good question. But to link it to literature festivals like this is what grinds my gears. Because now this question will be associated to this particular article. This particular paragraph also makes another good point, which is a criticism I agree with wholeheartedly. That why are literature festivals known by the celebrities that are invited and not the authors and the books that are invited? Because we have the same circuit of people that will be moving around in all of these literature festivals with the same panel, with the same question, with the same sort of discussion points, with 2 to 3 books bundled together. Why are actors, celebrities, sports people the ones who are heavily marketed to appear in the book festivals and not the books and the authors, which is the case with international book festivals? They will not tell you so and so author is going to be at this book festival. They are going to say this is the book festival and these are the people who are going to appear. And on top of the list, of course, you'll have the more popular people. In India, we see the name of the people mentioned first, then the literature festival, then what they'll be talking about and things. So this is good criticism. Who can have 10 different panels highlighting 10 different conversations and 10 different authors, and not just the two that you have picked. But because this article attacks readers, the publishing industry gets to just point the finger away from accountability towards, well, we do it because of them. It's these readers that make us do these things. Otherwise, we definitely want to highlight other authors and other perspectives, but these people don't give any attention. And this is what frustrates me even more. Such a good premise, ruined entirely for the rage bait. I suspect that is why this article is edited this way. It's not that the journalist is coming from a judgmental sort of space. It's that they know that Indians are going to get angry when they read the article, and the criticism could have been geared towards the book publishers. Something we know in book publishing is you never judge the readers. The judgment is like salt. The moment you put salt in something, it's going to enhance the flavor of the thing. Say chai, and you've put a bit of salt in it. The salt is going to enhance the sweetness, just a pinch, and maybe bring out more flavors of the spices. I don't know, I don't drink chai. But if you keep adding salt, right? If you keep adding salt, you will start tasting the salt and the chai will obviously be ruined. This particular journalist has put so much salt in the chai, and they could have just not done that. The journalist has generously salted the article with judgment and pinned the blame on the readers. And this could have been avoided by focusing on who is organizing the literature festivals, who is showing up to the literature festivals as attendants and as participants and as panelists. Another thing that the article could have gone into was India's output, or Indian readers, was how a majority of Indian readers do have output as a priority. So, LinkedIn posts, for instance, around reading books, see the content creation that comes from Indian book reviewers. They will always tell you, this book taught me, this book gave me. Very rarely will they focus on, this book made me pause, this book made me feel, this book made me da 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 da. It's, this book taught me 1 2 3. This book inspired me to learn 1 2 3. This is UGC, user generated content, telling you People are trying to extract value from books, which is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but when you are focused on extracting value from something, you're not focused on enjoying it, which is why the output oriented reading doesn't always translate to reading for pleasure. Reading for pleasure is you're just lying like a lazy little cat in some weird little position, or you are ignoring the rest of the world in public, and you have your books or your devices out, and you're like reading, and you're like and you're like reading, and you're like and you're like reading, you're like then you take out a reading journal, or you do some writing on the side or something, and then you think about what you read, and then you close it, and then you go back to it and you continue it. Reading for pleasure, reading without any sort of output. Just, I had fun and I got to spend time doing something I enjoy. We don't have a lot of that. And I wish that this is a question that was posed to the readers. How are Indian readers reading books? This is what I observed by talking to people or observing UGC or reviews online. No, the journalist did not go into any of that. Another thing I wish they highlighted was regional literature. Regional literature is not really counted in a lot of these book scan, book data type things. Mostly because the presses are either not registered with these organizations, or because the books, the regional literature stuff is happening via vanity presses. Vanity presses are nothing but glorified printing houses. The Xerox guy could be a vanity press. You give him to Xerox a version of the book and tell him to spiral bind it, he'll do it. It looks like a book. Something similar. Why is this not considered as reading in the eyes of the international as well as the national reading communities? I come from Gujarat. This is me being salty. I heard a colleague on Instagram offhandedly mention Gujarat doesn't have a reading culture. The reading culture of Gujarat is not focused around English. Same with movies. Gujaratis show up to watch natak. So Gujarati dramas is natak. People will line up in advance to watch these dramas live in their cities, small and big. They may not show up to, like, say, a stand-up comedy special, but they will show up for a dairo, which is different version of the same art form. So why is art form compressed to be this one singular thing? Another thing that could have been talked about is reading silently in a corner is not really a family activity. In fact, when you do it, people will think you're weird. Of course, the journalist has gone on and judged people for using their phones, but judging people for being on their phones has become the universal low hanging fruit. Everyone is going to judge the phone because that's the obvious thing to judge. Icing on the article cake was whatever brings non reading people to a literature festival where people are flocking to read books. And that's it.